The wedding hall glowed with 1,000 lights, chandeliers spilling warmth over tables covered in satin, roses arranged in perfect symmetry, and guests dressed in shimmering gowns and pressed tuxedos. Everyone seemed paired off, laughing, talking, celebrating. Everyone except him. Alexander Hayes, billionaire CEO of one of the largest corporations in the country, sat at a corner table alone, his broad shoulders rigid, his sharp jawline tense, his glass of champagne untouched. He had been invited because of business ties with the groom's family, but in truth, he hated weddings. They reminded him of everything he had lost, the fiancée who had left him years ago when his scarred heart hardened, the family dinners he no longer had time for, and the idea of love he had locked away. Guests stole glances at him, whispering. A man like him couldn't enter a room without drawing attention. Tall, striking, powerful, his presence heavy even in silence. But tonight, his isolation was as obvious as the sparkle of his cufflinks. Then it happened. A soft voice brushed against his ear, startling him. "Pretend you're with me," she whispered. He turned his head, and there she was. A woman in a simple dress, not like the glittering gowns of the others. Her hair was loose, curling down her back, her eyes wide with both fear and determination. She slid into the chair beside him without waiting for permission, her cheeks flushed as if she had just escaped something. Alexander raised a brow. "Excuse me." His voice was deep, controlled, but beneath it lingered curiosity. "Please," she said quickly, her hands trembling slightly as she folded them in her lap. "My ex just walked in. He can't see me alone. If he thinks I came with someone, anyone, he won't." She bit her lip, unable to finish. For the first time in years, Alexander felt his chest tighten in something other than cold irritation. He studied her closely, the vulnerability in her eyes, the courage it must have taken to approach him, the sheer audacity of choosing him, of all people, to play this part. "And you thought I'd make a convincing shield?" he asked, his lips curving into the faintest shadow of a smile. She nodded, her blush deepening. "You're the only one sitting alone. And, you don't exactly look like someone people would argue with." A low chuckle rumbled in his chest, surprising even him. "Fair enough." The ex she spoke of appeared across the room, scanning the crowd. His eyes landed on her, and he started walking toward them. Without another word, Alexander reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The gesture was bold, commanding, but his touch was gentle. "Then let's give him something to believe." Her breath caught as his thumb brushed her skin, steadying her trembling fingers. She sat straighter, and together they looked every bit like a couple deeply entwined. When the ex arrived at the table, his face darkened. "Lila," he said sharply, glaring at her. "What is this?" Before she could answer, Alexander's voice cut through, smooth and cold. "She's with me." The ex blinked, taken aback. "You?" "Yes. Problem." Alexander's tone carried the weight of boardroom authority, the kind that silenced shareholders and intimidated rivals. The man faltered, his arrogance shrinking under Alexander's unyielding gaze. "No, I just didn't know." "You don't need to know," Alexander said, his hand tightening protectively around Lila's. "She's moved on." The ex's jaw tightened before he muttered something and stormed away. Only when he disappeared into the crowd did Lila exhale, relief flooding her features. She turned to Alexander, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, I didn't know what else to do." He studied her again, something unspoken flickering behind his eyes. "You risked a lot, coming to me like that. Most people don't dare." She gave a small, nervous laugh. "Most people aren't desperate." The music shifted then, a waltz beginning as couples drifted onto the dance floor. Alexander hesitated, then stood and extended his hand. "Since we're pretending, shall we dance?" Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected more. But something in his voice, firm yet inviting, made her place her hand in his. He led her to the center, where whispers followed them. The billionaire CEO, known for his coldness, was suddenly holding a woman like she was the only person in the room. His arm wrapped securely around her waist, his movements graceful and commanding as they spun across the floor. For Lila, it felt unreal. She had come terrified of her ex, only to find herself in the arms of a man she had only seen in magazines and business articles. "You're not used to this, are you?" Alexander asked softly, noticing the way she stumbled slightly. "No," she admitted breathlessly. "I don't belong in rooms like this." He pulled her closer, his gaze piercing hers. Neither do I. For a moment, the world disappeared. The chandeliers blurred, the music faded, and it was only him and her, moving together like they had done this for years. After the dance, he led her outside into the cool night air. The stars stretched above them, quiet and endless. "Who was he to you?" he asked at last. "My ex-fiancé," she whispered. "He left me, humiliated me. Tonight, he wanted to make sure I remembered it." Alexander's jaw clenched. "And you thought pretending with me would be enough to silence him?" "It was more than enough," she said, her eyes softening as she looked at him. "You didn't have to do that, but you did." He turned away for a moment, wrestling with emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel. For years, his life had been about control, deals, and power. But tonight, this stranger had forced her way into his world with nothing more than a plea whispered at his side. "You reminded me of something I thought I'd forgotten," he admitted quietly. "What's that?" she asked. "That sometimes, all it takes is one person, to make you want to stay." Her breath caught at his words, her heart pounding. The cold billionaire, the man the world saw as untouchable, had just revealed a piece of himself no one else had. They stood there under the stars, silence wrapping around them, not uncomfortable, but filled with possibility. And though the night had started with a simple whisper to pretend, both knew there was nothing pretend about what had just begun.